Now, Eddie, you have tirelessly advanced your law firm from a local enterprise to a highly respected national practice, Dabdoub Law Firm. In doing so, you've advocated for law firms to function like high-end manufacturers. I'm curious about that. That's a little bit controversial, and some lawyers might be a little bit skeptical of that comparison. Why do you feel like this approach is necessary to scaling?
I'd say most lawyers are put off by the notion that you should run a law firm like a high-end manufacturing. Um,
Sure.
I actually think that the structure where the old law firm business model is thrown out and you bring in more of that high-end manufacturing structure bodes well, obviously, and I'll talk about why for owning and running a law firm, but really well for managing your clients' cases. And I can name
Okay.
a few reasons why. One, the cases are on a deliberate track, just like you would have a product going down the assembly line. And at every stage as it goes down that conveyor belt, someone with expertise touches that part of the product, but as it were for a law practice, the case
Hmm.
works on the case with their expertise, do it efficiently because this is what they're doing day in, day out, and the case continues down the conveyor belt. One of the biggest complaints clients have about attorneys are, well, my case has just been sitting there forever. Doesn't
Hmm.
sit, right? At Dabdoub Law Firm, the conveyor belt is always moving. No case sits. It just
Ah,
keeps moving. Now, I say high-end
yeah.
manufacturing product because in the end, the quality of the legal service has to be outstanding. And so
Hmm.
when our cases get to that point where we're at the end of the road, it is a solid high-end case, just like it would be if it was a high-end product. And so you have efficiency and you have quality, both working together, and it bodes well for clients and it does well for the firm. It generates fees faster, it moves the case faster, and you end up having a law firm that's structured with a bunch of different experts who don't need to know everything about every part of a case. They just need to be an expert about that part of the case that they're
Hmm.
tasked with.
Okay, very interesting. So can you give us like an example of how that functions in your practice, that manufacturing process?
Yeah. So I specialize in disability insurance claims, right? So just brief background on that, right?
Yeah.
My average client is somebody who is sick or injured and they can't work anymore and they have disability insurance and we need to submit a claim to the insurance company. And if approved, the insurance company will now pay a monthly disability benefit to that client. So if you are a new client at Dabdoub Law Firm and you just stopped working, your claim is at the initial stage of that manufacturing conveyor belt. It goes into what we call the claims slash appeals department, where we have assistants who are not assigned to attorneys, right? Like that, the old business model for law firms are we have attorneys, we have associates, and each attorney or associate, they have one assistant or two assistants. We don't assign assistants to attorneys. We assign assistants to departments.
Hmm.
And so a new client case comes into the first department. And this is where initial claims are submitted to insurance companies. And so the case gets assigned on a wheel, a rotation wheel to one of the assistants, and it gets assigned to an attorney. And the attorney and the assistant pairs up for that case. And then on another case, you may have that same attorney with another assistant in that department. So the case comes into the firm as a new client, and the claim has to get submitted to the insurance company. So this is the first stage of a case in its life cycle in my practice area. And so we have the case gets assigned to an assistant who is on a wheel, and an attorney is also assigned to the case, and they pair up on that case to work together. And that assistant knows exactly what are the tasks that need to be accomplished and by when, and what are the rules and laws that apply to this case at this stage in this moment. That assistant doesn't need to know everything else. Just what is her role, and it's very, very defined for that specific stage of the case. There's attorney oversight, attorney involvement, and when that claim is prepared and submitted to the insurance company, if it's approved, yay, great job. That case then gets transferred to another department whose role is to just manage an approved claim. Right? Now, if the initial claim is denied by the insurance company, the claim within the firm, and the appeals department is in itself made up of specialists whose only function is to prepare appeals at that specific stage. And let's just say the appeal is denied. The case then gets transferred to the firm's litigation department. And so you can see that conveyor belt visually now, right? Initial claim department handles it, does what it's supposed to do. Okay, it's denied. Move on down the conveyor belt very quickly, transfer that file to the appeals department. Okay, insurance companies denied it. Okay, we have to litigate, transfer down to the litigation department. As that case goes through its life cycle, every employee that touches it is within a specific department and knows exactly what they're supposed to do. There is no confusion of, oh, I thought that person was going to do this next, or they would do this differently. Everybody clearly understands what their roles are, what's to be done, and when it is to be done. And they become micro experts within a law firm that's already specializing.
Okay, that's great, Eddie. I appreciate you taking us through that process and sharing with us how that works in your practice. I imagine this is great, for efficiency, for improving productivity, and all of that good stuff. Can you tell us, how did you discover this process? I mean, did you always do things this way, or where did you learn that things needed to function in more of this manufacturing style method?
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of pinpoint when and where I figured out this is how it should work. I always kind of knew that the traditional law firm method just wasn't efficient and it didn't work. But I think there's a part of this that just came to me innately. I come from a long line of attorneys in my family and business owners. As I look back at my immediate family and extended family, I can't think of one person, be it a cousin, uncle, aunt, who doesn't have their own business. So I grew up in an atmosphere of entrepreneurs, and that was my norm, And then, so going to college, my mindset always was, I am going to build my own. And then before law school, I did an MBA. So that, I think, was where things started to become a bit more deliberate. I knew I was going to law school, but I knew I needed an MBA first. So I took a quick stop, did an MBA, went straight to law school. And then after law school, just started practicing at a firm where it was that traditional business model. And slowly, as my firm started to grow, I realized that there was a need to have more processes in place to function in the way that I described.
Yeah, and you had the benefit of having that MBA and a little bit of business background. I'm sure that was helpful.
Definitely helpful.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah.
Well, as you're growing your practice, this was obviously a key part of that in scaling, from the local level to more of a national firm. Tell us about some of the other key things that law firm owners need to know about that process of how do you get from local to then national? Having systems and processes, yes, absolutely. Are there other areas that are really critical to that transformation?
I think the first thing is the mindset, right? We hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about mindset, and many attorneys don't want to go national, and that's fine. But if you do, you have to really have that mindset. It has to be something that you're really setting out to do. I remember when I made that decision that I was going to move outside of Florida, and why not? All right. I had the entire United States as a legal market that is mostly untapped when you're talking about plaintiffs' firms trying to scale and go nationally. I remember going on Amazon, this is years ago, buying the biggest map I could find of the United States. It shows up at the office, and I just plastered it all over the conference room. And I remember a bunch of employees in the firm walking by, looking at it, having no clue what we're doing. And that was just kind of the stamp, of me saying, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. So the mindset is incredibly important, but then you need a deliberate strategy. So I sat down and I wrote out a strategic growth plan, and I created benchmarks. I created benchmarks in periods of 5 years. Where do I want things to be in 5 years? Then I created it in 1 year. What goal do I need to accomplish in one year? Then I did it quarterly. Where do I want to be in 3 months? So what I did was, with a 5-year plan, I had a bigger view of where I wanted things to be. With a 1-year goal and plan, it was keeping me on task to make these large incremental steps. And with every 3 months, having set goals within that, it kind of forces you to focus on, what do I need to get done before the first quarter is over? Then, okay, I did that, check. What do I need to get done before the second quarter is over? And then the next thing you know, you're on your way to hitting that 1-year goal. And then as you hit those 1-year goals, you look back and you go, I hit the 5-year goal. So there needs to be some kind of strategic growth plan in place. And then I think you hear entrepreneurs talk about this too. The other thing to me that was hugely important was a recognition that I will not do this on my own. I cannot do this on my own. I can be the brain, the mastermind, the visionary, but I need a group of really talented and smart people. And I went out and I've started hiring and finding really talented attorneys. I'll tell you, I'm very proud to say that I think we've got the best group of attorneys in my practice area in the entire country. And we've got the track record of winning really tough cases in federal court, making really good law. Then we use that law to win more cases. So there's a core group of employees in my firm, of attorneys as well as assistants and mid-level managers, that are core and fundamental to the firm. And everybody, Darren, everybody, not just attorneys, not just partners, but everybody has skin in the game. When my law firm grows, everybody grows with it. There's not a person in my law firm, including an assistant, that looks back 5 years ago and they're in the same place financially. And that's a message that has resonated through the firm. What we are doing is something special. We are helping people across the country. And in doing so, you're going to grow a firm. And when that firm grows, you'll grow with it. And so one of the things we do is we have an incentive program where everybody is eligible for a quarterly bonus, depending on the firm's performance and individual performance.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful. I want to go back real quick to what you said about mindset. What is it about mindset that needs to shift or change? Did you recognize that there were some areas of your own mindset that needed to adjust to make that shift from local to national?
One of the shifts I had to make in my mind, and this was really difficult, was letting go of the day-to-day managing stuff. And I am somewhat of a perfectionist, to be candid with you. And so the challenge has been, how do I scale this law firm in a way where we can have sustainable growth without compromising the quality of the cases moving down the conveyor belt? I refuse to sacrifice clients' cases and quality for growth. And then, as you are growing any business, but especially a legal practice, I think lawyers run into this dilemma where they feel they have to choose between growth or keeping it small and keeping control of the quality. And so I had to make a shift in my mind to say, I have to start trusting that the processes I have in place, that the people I have running those processes have bought into the idea of how the firm is going to function. They get what needs to be done. and they know there's a certain standard. And slowly I was able to start it wasn't overnight, Darren. There's no way overnight I would let go. But slowly I started to delegate, especially to the attorneys who have responsibility here. And so that was one of the biggest shifts in my mind that I had to make.
Yeah, that can be very difficult to let go.
Absolutely.
And to trust, for sure. From your perspective, why should law firm owners care, or why should they strive for that national thing? I mean, what does it do? What are the key benefits of going national? What would it do for them?
Probably the two biggest advantages, I think, one is it creates this branding, this awareness, and it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy where as you scale and grow and you're branding, especially if you have like a niche practice area like mine, you start to see that there's a snowball effect where people are like, oh wait, yes, that firm, they specialize, they're really good at it. And whether it's online branding and the SEO wheels are turning, or the PPC campaigns with Google, or just word of mouth through a nationwide network like what we have, things just literally start to spread like a bushfire, right? And cases start coming into you. And what that does is when your branding grows and the name recognition is out there, you start all of a sudden to have cases coming to you from all over the country. You get the pick of the litter. You get to say, hey, that case is okay, but I can't take it on right now without sacrificing some of my other cases, and I'm not going to do that. But this one's a real winner, and there's a bunch of fees to be made here. And so you start to cherry pick these cases, which improves your profit margin. And that's where I'm going with this. You are able, through scaling, to start to get more and better cases. You get to cherry pick the cases you want. Your profit margin starts to improve. That's a huge one for sure.
That increases your profits, makes you more successful that way, because you can choose. And I'm curious, in your practice, it may also, I'm assuming, give you a greater ability to attract some of those higher value cases, perhaps. Has that been the case for you?
It's absolutely been the case. I mean, we're getting, as the years go by, more and more calls from higher end clients. I represented a liver transplant surgeon a few years ago. We won his case in federal court. He reached out to us because of our reputation, that branding, and he's not in Florida. He's in another state. And so we're seeing people contacting us saying, we've heard of you, right? And they hear of us from other attorneys or from other clients. There is one other important reason, as I think about it, that one might want to scale a law firm to go national. If you've got a plaintiff's law firm, one of the things we're seeing now is somewhat of a consolidation of law firms into large, massive law firms, right? There are a few out there that are just like these law firms with 500 to 1,000 plaintiffs' attorneys, and they have these massive marketing budgets, and they're just kind of spreading and gobbling up all these other small firms. And so it's becoming increasingly competitive, where it is the firms with the biggest marketing budget that has the loudest megaphone reaching the most people. And so if you are in your 50s and 60s as an attorney and you have a solo practice, you may be seeing it's getting harder and harder to get cases like you used to 10, 15 years ago. One of the things that we've been doing is by scaling the law firm, that growth model that we have, that strategy is allowing us to get more cases. More cases gives us more fees gets pumped back into the marketing grows, the cases grow, the fees grow, we grow the firm. And so what we've been able to do is carve out our place in the market where we can't get bullied out by the big firms anymore. Maybe we can't compete with the 500,000 law firms in terms of marketing budget, but that's not who we're competing with. We are offering a high-end manufacturing product, and we're not so small you can knock us out. We're a good size where we're here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, making that shift from local to national affects so many things in the structure and operations of your law firm. You've mentioned how you use this process and this thinking to ensure client quality and everything else. How about the challenges? What have been some of the specific challenges that you encountered during that transition, and how did you deal with those?
Well, we always have some challenges with any type of business, I would say. I think it's particularly difficult on the legal side if you are, as I was speaking to earlier, interested in maintaining quality. Um, so we discussed that. I think some of the other challenges is as you start to grow, it's wonderful if you have processes in place. It's wonderful if you have the people in place and they have expertise, but there comes a point where you go, wait, hang on. Do I need to bring IT in-house now? Do
Mm,
I need to bring marketing in-house? What kind of IT infrastructure do I need to put in place? And so it is when you are small, you don't need to have the yourself surrounded by IT folks. You don't need a marketing team on the ground, and so as we've grown, we needed to make shifts where we have solid IT in place. We have marketing, which is now hybrid in-house and outside.
hmm
And then I think where we are now, and this is a big challenge, is finding case management or IT systems that are specific to how you've structured your law firm to run. And we've tried several case management systems. None have worked because we have a unique business model on the practice of the law firm, as well as the intake and marketing side of the law firm. And so we're now in the process of building out our own IT systems
Okay.
for case management on marketing and handling cases.
Yeah, as you get more highly specialized, you learn more about what's really unique to your particular clientele. And you realize that, oftentimes there aren't tools that are really specific to who you're working with. And I have found that with law firm owners, which is one of the reasons that we've created our own like financial planning system for, helping law firm owners to manage and grow their wealth more effectively because there are so many financial planning tools out there, but none that really I love in particular. So I can definitely resonate with that for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so tell me, I know you have a very interesting story in how you built your business and your practice. Tell us kind of the journey about how you got started and came into law in the first place.
After graduating from high school, I came to Miami. This is like more than 20 years ago. Um, Undergrad degree, MBA, and then straight to Law School, University of Miami. Now, it was while I was at Law School, I remember saying, well, I'm in a second year. I'd like to get some experience clerking at a law firm because my goal was to go back to Jamaica to practice because my family has an established law firm there. And I was just kind of going to go back and follow that path. But in my second year of law school, I started to work at a really small law firm made up of 3 attorneys that were handling these types of cases. And I just really started to like the practice area first and foremost. So after graduating from law school, they made an offer for me to come on as an associate. And I said, why not? Let me test the waters up here. I can always go back to Jamaica if I choose. And I started practicing here as an attorney. And by my second year, um, as an attorney, I said, I'm staying. This is what I'm doing. This is my career path. And I'm going to build the biggest and best disability insurance law firm in the country. And that was me just kind of green straight out of law school. But the first 2 years as an attorney, I remember working 6.5 days a week and I was not making a lot of money as a new attorney. And I
Wow.
passed up big law job offers because I wanted to take that path of being a plaintiff's attorney with eventually starting and growing my own law firm.
Mm-hmm.
But those 2 first years, I just drowned myself in the practice area to become really good as an attorney in that practice area. And then shortly thereafter, I think the reality was I was probably taking on the lion's share of cases in that firm, and it created some conflict between the other attorneys. There's this young kid, and he's probably handling the majority of the cases on his own, winning a bunch, settling a bunch for good money. And so it created a rift within that law firm. And so I broke off with one of the partners, joined a partnership with him, just me and him. And I stayed in that partnership for a few years. And then eventually I said, I'm going in a different direction. I have big plans. I'm going national. And I'm throwing out the way we've been practicing. And we're going to put a whole new model in place. And I broke off and went off on my own at that point. It's been history since. We've been consistently growing year in, year out, based on the amount of clients we get, the amount of fees we're generating, and the people that we're adding to the team.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And one of the benefits of scaling and growing and going national is that you turn your law practice into a very real, tangible asset, a financial asset. That can be one day perhaps sold. And we've talked a lot on this show before about succession planning and transition planning and thinking about your business as a business asset that has value. I'm curious what the future holds for you and for your business, and if you've started to think about some of these long-term plans.
Great question. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of attorneys do not look at their law practice as an asset that has some sellable value. I always have. And so part of my thought process is, as we build the firm, as we grow the firm, how do we do it in a way where we increase the value of the firm if the time comes down the road where I say, I'm going to sell, I'm out. So the firm's at a point right now where I do think it has inherently a lot of value, and it is very attractive to be sold, not just because it's built now where I can go, here are the keys.
Yeah.
Everything's running really well. We've got a bunch of experts, we have processes in place, we have marketing, we have a good intake department, we have a nationwide network around the country of doctors and lawyers, and so you have all of that stuff to tap into. We could literally turn over the firm and say, look at all that you're getting that are tangible assets.
Right.
Because you know this, one of the problems with law firms is if you sell the firm, well, can you really sell it because the firm is you?
Yeah. Yeah.
The cases are coming in because of you only, and you're the one managing the cases. And so if you're not handling the cases and you're not getting the cases, what is there to sell? Who is going to buy? It's like a shell. There's nothing in it. Not the way my law firm is structured. I can be taken out, and if you get a CEO to step into where I am, the firm is going to continue running just fine. So there is tangible asset. And one more thing I would say, the way I've structured my law firm's fees, we have accounts receivables coming in. So now I have cash flow coming into my law firm. I don't want to say it's an annuity because it's still tied to some legal things, but there is a monthly cash flow that's coming into my law firm that you can now run a valuation on when you want to sell it. And so you could accurately value the firm based on what you're getting from the personnel, the IT, the marketing, the network, the people, the processes, and all of that. But then you can put another tangible value of cash flow that would be coming in if you bought the firm. What kind of cash flow will you for sure be getting in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
Right, right. That's great. That's great stuff. I love it. And you know, these are great things to think about. So if you're solo and it's just you, it's your personal goodwill, and that is tough to transition. But it's the machine. Once you've created this entity, you've got those processes in place. You have a machine, as self-running as you can get that. You can make that a machine that runs on its own. Yeah, now you've got something that is valuable and attractive.
A well-oiled machine.
Yes.
And I remember many years ago, I took one of these rare time off where I was out of the office for like 2 weeks. just disconnected. And then I came back and I'm like, wow, we did that well while I
Yeah,
was away. I made that much money when I wasn't here,
that's
right?
awesome.
And so if you look at attorneys that are solo practitioners or don't have a similar business model, if they're not tethered to their chair doing work, they're not generating fees. I'm
Right.
not built that way. I can go to Europe for a month and the well-oiled machine is going to continue running and making a lot of fees.
Yeah, that's a great uh, place to aspire to get to for many folks. Well, Eddie, we've come to the end of our time here, and I'd love to have you share with us one more thing, though. If you're a local law firm and you want to take that next step and scale to the national level, what's kind of the first place that you need to think about? Am I dealing with the branding, or is it opening a new office somewhere? Where should you start?
I don't think you start with a physical office because of our ability to work remotely. Most of my staff are not physically located in Miami. A lot of them work from home. I have people in Michigan. We have folks different places. I think the first place to start is to think about, how do I get cases outside of wherever you are? So I think the first place then is to sit down and write up a marketing plan for getting cases outside of your state, right? You're probably already good at getting cases in your state. Is that replicable? Whatever you're doing in your state, can you do it somewhere else? And so what I did was I found the next 2 to 3 states that I would move into, right?
Okay.
I don't try to swallow the entire United States. Pick 1 or 2 states. Figure out how you're going to get the cases from those states. It really depends on your practice area, so I can't speak to that, right? But you know how to get cases, go into 1 or 2 states that are close by. And one last point I would make here is, when you're choosing those states, look at your demographics. Who is the target client, right? In my case, I wanted to target individuals with disability insurance policies. They tend to be folks who are working for large corporations where they get insurance from work. Or secondly, they're physicians who have their own individual disability insurance policies. So as I said, I wanted to target this state. I looked at the demographics and I said, well, there are a bunch of really good corporations headquartered there, employing a bunch of people. And there are a lot of hospital systems there. So there are a lot of physicians in that state. So be very deliberate about that first state or 2 you choose.
Okay. Yeah. Great advice. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great talking with you, and you've shared a lot of great wisdom for our audience. In closing, would you please tell our audience where they can go to learn more about you?
Absolutely. www.longtermdisability.net.
Great. And we'll make sure and put that in the show notes along with all of your additional information. And so folks can reach out and go and learn more about you. So thanks again for being here today. It's been great.
Thank you. I had a blast, Darren. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Absolutely.